Recorded. Good evening. Welcome to the December meeting of the Transportation and Public Safety Committee. We have an interesting agenda with much public interest this evening. Though the agenda says public comment session will take place at the beginning, we will take public comments on each agenda items after the presentation is made on each item, and after committee members and public board members get to ask any members any questions they might have or make a short and relevant comment. Then we will allow the public to make comments on the agenda item. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes. We will have a countdown clock and I will give warning when the time is about to expire. If you run over, I will ask you to finish up. We reserve the right to turn off your mic if you keep going, which I hope will not be necessary. Public officials are ex officio to the board and will be recognized as board members. I expect everyone to treat everyone with appropriate respect. You can disagree without being disagreeable. We ask committee members to keep their cameras on and everyone to turn off the microphones except that they're being called on. At the end of the meeting, there will be an open comment community forum, at which time anyone wishing to be recognized on any item, not necessarily the items that we have presentations on, will be recognized again for 2 minutes with the same rules. John, please call the roll.
Mr. Meyer,
Present. I don't know whose feedback that was, but that's what happens when you keep the mics open.
I hope it's not mine.
You want to continue calling the roll, please?
Mr. Quint, I'm here. Mr. Augustus,
Here.
Ms. Balboza. I saw Sandy. Sandy, if you're on mute.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Cullen Chung,
Here.
Mr. Du,
Here.
Ms. Gallo is excused. Ms. Gelbs,
Here.
Mr.
John, I think you called me, but you muted yourself.
Mr. Quinn, could you unmute yourself, please?
Okay. Mr. Howardson, Mr. Kalaki,
Here. Nice to see everyone.
and Mr. Scala. Has he come on? Zero?
I'm here.
Okay,
I'm here.
everybody's here except Ms. Gallo, who's excused, so we have a quorum.
And Miss Gilman, I'm here as well, just so you have it, John.
Oh, sorry,
No worries.
you're right. Everybody's here. Is Mr. Meyer still on?
I'm back on.
Okay, that's why.
Someone turned me off.
You have a quorum, yeah.
That's good. All right. So I'm asking for the approval. I request the approval of the agenda as I modified it.
I think he's here, but he would be in the basement because he's not up here.
Someone's got to turn their mic off. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Julia and John seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. The approval of the minutes from November 18th. Are there any corrections to the minutes from November 18th? Hearing none. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, John Do.
Seconded by Brian.
All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Aye. Opposed? No opposed, anybody abstain? Okay. Good evening, everyone. The first agenda item is a presentation by the Downtown Brooklyn Public Realm Vision Plan. May you and Belinda.
That's Belinda Cape.
Great.
Hi, Belinda, how are you? It's Sid Meier. Okay,
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you see the slideshow on the screen?
yes.
Great. Thank you for your time this evening. On behalf of Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, we wanted to give you an update on some of the projects from our Public Realm Action Plan that we presented to the Community Board a few times over the last couple years. So I will run through the slides quickly so we can have a discussion. First, I wanted to recap some of the work from the last 3 years on this project, which included existing conditions analysis, creation of a vision and framework with some strategies, and then lastly, kind of the recommendations and projects that make up the action plan. Then I'll briefly cover some of the updates from projects that are under construction, and then speak a little bit to next steps. First, I think everyone's familiar with downtown Brooklyn. The boundaries of our study area are here as follows, which includes the 3 bids that Downtown Brooklyn Partnership manages. Again, just a reminder for folks who have seen this earlier versions of this presentation, we really focused on 3 kind of pieces in looking at the public realm. First is improving the streetscape, establishing a sense of place, and strengthening the identity. And we issued a public RFP and selected the architecture firms, Bjarke Ingels Group and WXY, to help us develop a vision plan and design recommendations. And our vision for downtown Brooklyn is looking to the next decade of wanting to create a people-focused downtown, a hub for jobs and businesses, and streetscape that incorporates the arts and can demonstrate the cultural vitality of Brooklynites. And so just a reminder, this plan and study has really been a 3-year process. We've worked very closely with a number of public agencies, including DOT, as well as our 50-member steering committee. We've had workshops with a lot of individual members of the steering committee, including members of the community board, and held 3 larger workshops throughout this process. And we also presented to the community board, both the general board as well as the transportation committee over the last 2 years, really, both on the development of the ideas, the early action projects, and we received, thankfully, unanimous support for PDC approvals for 2 of the pilot projects that I'll show you in a minute. So again, just kind of going through some of the existing conditions analysis that we came up with and looking at some of the kind of problem statements and issues that we would like to address through this plan and the projects. And again, again, really kind of developing a vision and framework based on 4 principles of creating a more pedestrian-friendly environment and a more walkable downtown, a safer downtown, a greener downtown, and more engaging downtown. And the feedback from both the community board as well as all the members of the steering committee has been really helpful in helping us develop kind of these 4 strategies and as we look at projects with the city agencies. One is really looking at infrastructure for people, really focusing on the bus and bike network and making sure that it's both safe and protected and can connect downtown Brooklyn to our adjacent neighborhoods as well as to Manhattan. The second one is really looking at expanding the shared street network. The third is increasing biodiversity and sustainability as much as we can through permeable materials as well as tree planting. And the fourth is really looking at Bold Brooklyn. What can we develop, what ideas can we develop to redesign some of the public spaces and bold strategies to advocate for more investment in our parks and public spaces? So again, we worked with the community board and members of the steering committee on looking at and identifying the gaps in the bicycle network. And from a lot of the feedback we proposed looking at an extension of DOT's existing temporary bike lane on the Brooklyn Bridge through Adams and down to Joralemon, and looking at protected bike lanes on possibly Fulton as well as Skimmerhorn. Again, that goes hand in hand with the bus network and the large number of buses that travel through downtown Brooklyn and ways of addressing congestion, as well as alleviating pressure on some of our surface streets to allow for more pedestrian activity and bicycles as well. The second element, again, looking at our shared street network and many of the narrow substandard sidewalks and streets, particularly in the core of downtown between Fulton and Skimmerhorn streets. And we, as you know, many folks know, we have a number of one-way streets and small streets that kind of dead end into Fulton Mall. What can we do and work with both the city and private property owners in looking at rebuilding and expanding sidewalks and making this area not only more pedestrian friendly, but have a more of a neighborhood atmosphere for a wide variety of constituents. And then I think, as everyone is also aware of, there are many constraints that prevent the tree canopy from having much coverage in downtown Brooklyn. So the pink shows all the areas where there aren't any street trees or vegetation. And we have a goal of planting 1,000 new trees within the district. And we are already chopping away at that goal and increasing permeability through a number of the strategies that I'll speak about. And here's kind of a look at the key initiatives or key projects that we're advocating for, and some of which we're already implementing, stretching from Columbus Park and working with the Parks Department on and reinvesting in this space, all the way down to the Flatbush Avenue Capital Project and helping to increase pedestrian safety around 4th and Atlantic. So taking a closer look at infrastructure for people, this rendering shows kind of a vision for the capital project that we're advocating for and currently working with DOT on, and trying to push this into the capital budget plan. As you can see here, and I think as many people are aware of, the bike lane right now comes off the Brooklyn Bridge and ends at Johnson. Especially given all the enthusiasm for the temporary bike lane on the Brooklyn Bridge roadway, our proposal is to extend this bike lane down to Joralemon and create more of a greenway on Adams and Broome Street, Broome Place. Additionally, we're working with New York City Transit as well as the Department of Transportation and looking at how we can better alleviate the bus congestion on Fulton Street while also creating more of a space for bicyclists and expanding the greenery on Fulton Street to have more of a comfortable and permeable surfaces where we can. The shared street network, we're working with DOT on expanding their toolkit of both materials and interventions for their shared streets. The first shared street in Brooklyn was along Willoughby Street, and it goes from roughly Pearl to Willoughby and Jay. So we're looking at upgrading that with different materials, planters, and even some street art and paint perhaps on the pedestrian areas. So this is just a representative rendering of what that could look like. Again, we're also working with property owners on widening sidewalks. This is an image of Elm Place, which is a street that we're proposing a shared street on, and that the CB2 Transportation Committee last year was excited to hear about and supported. Gallatin Place, again, this is just a representative visual of what art can do to public space. We're not proposing these exact interventions, but again, we'd love to carve out some of the roadway for additional pedestrian space, make this area more bright, more playful, and more engaging for residents, students, and workers, and so on else. Diving a little bit more into how we would increase biodiversity, the first piece of that is we're looking to widen all sidewalks where possible. Especially taking advantage of new development sites and working with property owners as well as the city on widening and improving those sidewalks as developers build and have to rebuild their sidewalks. We're looking at widening tree beds, adding in understories, adding in plantings everywhere we can, and also incorporating a few design measures to create more of a distinctive feel and identity throughout downtown. So again, one of our concepts is to enlarge the existing tree pit, soften the edges and create more of a round geometry and have a more of an organic feel, and to add an understory. And if and when those streets are made to be shared streets, adding in more pedestrian amenities like benches and other items. So this is the rendering Hoyt Street. This project was approved by the community board in October of last year, and then approved by the Public Design Commission in the end of last year, with the final approval in March of this year. And this project has been under construction. And I'll show you an image in the slides ahead. This is another example of working with both DOT as well as the property owner of 9 Dekalb, also now called the Brooklyn Tower. I'm really greening up Fleet Street and pedestrianizing it. Fleet Street, feels like a little bit of a back alley with the loading docks for both City Point and 9 Dekalb on the Flatbush intersection. But this could be a more of a pleasant pedestrian space and really expand the public space and experience of Albee Square towards Fleet and Flatbush. This is a representative rendering of the project that we're working with DOT on. It's a funded capital project along Flatbush Avenue that really focuses on pedestrian safety. And then lastly, really looking at redesigning and investing in some of the public spaces throughout the district to make them more modern and more usable. So this is an idea of what University Place along the LIU campus could be. And we're, again, advocating with the Parks Department as well as Long Island University on upgrading the space. So a quick update, and we're happy to share that, in the last year, especially through the health crisis, we've been able to not only start a pilot project, but secure city approvals for a lot of our designs so we can implement them citywide. And again, as I mentioned, Hoyt Street will be a shared street. And right now, this image was actually taken a month or two ago, so there is actually additional progress. So as you can see, Hoyt Street itself was widened about 4 feet, allowing for more pedestrian space. We were able to make the curb more curvilinear as well as organic and expand the tree pits. Right now, if you walk by Hoyt, Elm, and Livingston, the pavers are in as well. So you can see an example of that permeability. Elm on the other side of this property was actually widened to about 9 feet. Previously, it was a very narrow sidewalk, and we were able to add just under 10 new trees for this project, 10 new street trees. There weren't any street trees on Elm previously. So another update, the Albee Square and Fleet Street project I spoke about earlier, again, came to the Community Board Transportation Committee for support for their Public Design Commission application. And I'm happy to say that they received a preliminary approval from CDC and are currently finishing up their application for final approval. So they amended some of the initial vision that you see, but are still keeping both in-ground and street trees in-ground and in-ground planters, as well as raised planters, giving some of the subsurface infrastructure, as well as seating and lighting along Fleet. So this is kind of another look at Fleet Street and the type of planters they're hoping to use, as well as some temporary catenary lights. So this area can feel a little bit more safe, a little bit more bright, and can be used more hours of the day. And this is another look on the edges of that property. This again shows you kind of the expanded tree pits with the permeable pavers and the understory that we're, the understory design that we are hoping to roll out district-wide. Again, for this project, we were able to add just under 30 new trees, street trees. So again, chopping away at our 1,000 new trees goal. And then speaking to next steps briefly, we're again working with DOT on expanding the shared street network within downtown Brooklyn and hoping to add a few additional streets to our current Willoughby shared street in the summer or fall of next year. So we're very excited about that. And in addition to that, DOT is working with us on expanding their toolkit so we can add additional planters, street trees, kind of more engaging, colorful elements on the pedestrian areas of those shared streets. Belinda, would you like to, do you have anything to add?
I do not. I just actually, because we've had a few questions when we released the most recent iteration of this plan, and I know some members of CB2 questioned having not come to the community board to present on this. And I just wanted to emphasize that in terms of traffic pattern changes or street closures, nothing's changed from last time we came to present to you. It's mostly in the design refinements and toolkit and materials. Would that be right, May?
That's correct.
Yeah, right.
So again, you know, through the Public Design Commission process, we got a lot of feedback from the commissioners as well as DOT on the material of some of the tree guards and other pieces. No transportation changes, as Belinda mentioned, and we are not proposing any street closures.
And thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, May.
Great. Happy to answer any questions from the committee or other members.
Let me start with me since it's on the chair. All right.
Oh, okay.
First of all, there are no street closures. Are there any streets where lanes will be removed?
No. So the shared streets right now, the shared street network we're looking at, let me go to that slide, sorry. We're really focusing on some of the streets that only have one lane, right? And they're kind of, ultimately a lot of them dead end onto Fulton Street or Metro Tech Center. The other change that we're proposing on the capital end would be extending the bike lane in the median along Adams. And Adams is a multi-lane, really kind of a vehicular thoroughfare. It wouldn't remove any of the lanes.
Yeah, it's 4 lanes there with one lane of police and people parking in the safety lane, which is a problem. That's another issue, but that's not your problem. That's our problem. Is there any parking going to be removed?
So I think as you kind of alluded to, there is a large placard parking problem in downtown Brooklyn. And we see a lot of parking on sidewalks as well. One of the kind of strategies that we're using as DOT converts streets into shared streets, some of the curbside parking would be removed to make space for pedestrians.
And that would be on which streets? Do you know which streets that would be removed on?
So one example would be on Hoyt Street here.
Yeah. So
we widened the sidewalk on Hoyt, and so parking on the opposite side of Macy's would be removed.
And but if I remember correctly, that was presented to the board and the committee, and we approved the changes, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And the other example, very similar, is Elm Street. So the sidewalk was widened about 9 feet here. So the parking along the west side of Elm would be removed.
And let me ask my staff, did we receive any letters from the public concerning this change, the Downtown Brooklyn Public Realm Vision Plan?
No, there were no letters received or comments on this.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board members who have questions? Any committee members who have questions?
Just to note, Ms. Blackshear also had a comment.
I saw her. I will take her in a minute. I promise her. I promise you, Nan. Any board members?
I have a question or comment.
Please go ahead.
Thanks. My kids go to school at 80 Willoughby, which is on the corner of Willoughby and Bridge. The entrance to their school is on Bridge. There's another school that shares the same building. The entrance is on Willoughby. I do drive my kids to school and drop them off, and traffic on Willoughby and Bridge is a nightmare. There are kids that take school buses too. So Willoughby itself is a shared street. I don't think Bridge is. We're like, I would appreciate a no parking zone in the morning to allow for like standing for school drop off, if that's something that you could consider. And the parents and the teachers may have spoken to somebody, but we would support maybe the closure of the street of Bridge Street between Willoughby and Metro Tech, maybe during the day, so that they could do recess in the street. Like, they only do recess at Metro Tech right now.
Yeah, so Juliet, we actually had Regina and I met with the school, a representative from both of those schools and some parents. And they had already put in an application for a DOT open street temporary full closure to accommodate the very activity you're talking about. I don't know where that.
They got rejected.
Oh, they did. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I'm just stating, my support for maybe some modification of it, if there's something that you could work with them on to try to facilitate something for the kids.
Yeah, I imagine I think it's the volume of garages on that street and loading docks and so forth. But we'll definitely talk to DOT and Keith and see if there's anything we can do.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe not that block, the block towards Metro Tech may be better than the actual, block that they're on. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It is part of our ultimate proposal for extending the shared street network. And we're aware of all the kind of operational drop-off pickup zones as well. So I think there are different measures DOT is proposing to look at. It could be kind of a shared street and by time of day as well. So definitely have that in mind.
Nan, you would like to have a comment, please?
It's actually a question. As you know, ladies, behind Borough Hall is, because of the materials that are used, is ideal for skateboarding, which is, of course, to the detriment of the building steps and the pedestals for the lighting there. So my question is, the plaza areas, when you put pavers down, are you considering doing some type of texturizing with the pavers to prevent what's happening at Borough Hall at any of your other plazas?
That's a good point, Nan. Just to kind of show you perhaps an image. The other plazas that we've studied don't have the same kind of steps that the Borough Hall has along Columbus Park. So they don't make for good skateboarding areas. We are looking at decomposed granite as a option along Fleet Street for permeability, and it's a material that DOT likes as well. I know in 300 Ashland, we've put clips along some of the steps as well to prevent skateboarders.
And it doesn't work.
I'm glad to hear it.
Lucy Coteen, you have a question?
Excuse me, I've had my hand raised.
I'm sorry, I don't see.
And after me is John, by the way. I actually have 3 questions. Thank you very much for this presentation. The first one is, how have you taken into account the reduction in vehicles that will likely occur with congestion pricing into your designs, particularly the design of Adams Street and Bourne Place?
So one element that we discussed much earlier on in our existing conditions analysis is that for budgetary and other reasons, we did not do a full traffic analysis as part of the study. But as you know, any proposal that we do make will have to go through DOT and various city agencies. So the idea of extending the bike lane along Adams is something at DOT, actually staff level, have proposed as well and are interested in studying, that they would then take on a full traffic study and look at potential impacts as well as the exact design and location. What we've proposed and, you know, the larger capital pieces of this plan are setting a vision so we can advocate for funding from both our city agencies as well as our elected officials to make happen. A project like this would have then its own engagement design process.
Okay, thank you. I would say that if we're talking about actual changes, like concrete changes, like physical concrete changes to the street, that like it's probably wise to think about how vehicle numbers might change in the next 18 months. But thank you very much for your answer. The other question I had is that many of your designs show curbless streets. So I don't know if you're referring to them as shared streets. And in other words, where the street and the sidewalk are at the same level. And I'm curious how these designs will prevent people from just parking all over the street and sidewalk.
That's a good point. So this rendering, so for the existing shared street on Pearl, the area between the roadway and the pedestrian area is curbless, but the sidewalk has a curb as well. So there is parking. One thing that we've gotten PDC approval on is a variety of planters that are off the shelf. Some of them are large enough to have the soil volume to support full street trees. Others are kind of rectangular and long enough to act as a delineator. So we're hoping to use those to protect the pedestrian areas, both as a safety measure and also as a very visible way of delineating pedestrian areas. Some of that can also be used along the temporary or non-protected bike lanes, say on J Street.
Okay, thank you. I just want to note that although there are planters, say in this photo, you showed us, several different streets. Hoyt comes to mind that don't show any, matter of preventing people from, driving onto the sidewalk other than where the trees are located. So like between the trees or on the entire, left curb. Are you additionally considering using planters or other design elements to prevent people from parking on the sidewalk there?
So this isn't a curbless street. This is actually extending the raised sidewalk. And perhaps this rendering doesn't have the level of detail, but this will be an elevation change. So
okay.
Unfortunately, yes, vehicles could drive up on the sidewalk. The steel edge and the curb would hopefully prevent that. But this would be like any other sidewalk.
Okay, my mistake. Sorry about that.
No, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Carol Ann's going to call the people from now on. Caroline, you want to call?
Do?
Yes. I have just a couple of issues. The first one, there are two subway stations in the district that are only partially ADA compliant. One on Duffield Street and the one on Skirmahorn Street, the IRT that goes to the A and C line. What, if any, work or pressure have you applied to the MTA to complete the ADA compliance for those subway stations?
Sean, yes, I remember your comment about this from last time you presented to the Transportation Committee, and we relayed those concerns to both DOT as well as the MTA. Our study for both practical and kind of timeline issues didn't do a full study of the subway system. We wanted to make sure we were able to act on kind of more immediate and medium-term projects that we can actually start implementing as the bid. I know the MTA has a number of struggles, but we have tried to advocate for this as much as possible.
Again, This issue keeps being shunted. This is a request that the community board made back to 2004. And we have gotten none of these stations on the list of stations. There are many in the system, but we're talking about downtown Brooklyn. Those two stations are halfway done. They need to be done. You should also be aware that there is a $500,000 that was allocated from a development on Flatbush Avenue for making the Nevin Street station ADA compliant.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
Sam-
John, as the bid, we have about as much control over the MTA as you do. But we do continue to advocate for those changes.
Are all of the curbs in your district ADA compliant?
All of the curbs, all of the new designs and materials that we looked at are ADA compliant. That is a big requirement that the Public Design Commission imposes on any distinctive or kind of new design or materials. All of the permeable paving and the decomposed granite that I spoke about earlier, that would also be ADA accessible. In addition to seating and benches that we could put at the kind of pinch of the tree bed, that would have an ADA companion seating as well.
How much residential, or do you have any residential within the district? Any residential developments?
Yes, there are many residential developments in downtown Brooklyn.
So how are they expected to get their Uber and Grubhub and Amazon type deliveries? How are we accommodating that?
There are, different buildings have different operational designs. This building, for example, has a curb cut here that allows for drop-off, pickup in this in the interior of their building. Many other buildings have different designated areas for your Uber, your Lyft, rideshare, and as far as food delivery and electric bicycles, that's also something that we're working with property owners and the city on. But it's addressed for each building in a different way.
So all of the residential buildings, when they get a delivery, that delivery does not block traffic at all? That's a
I
question.
mean, it's going to be the same. It's citywide. DoorDash, Grubhub, Ubers block traffic everywhere.
Can we go on? Can we go to the next board member, please?
Sid, can I speak? Sandy Balboza.
I'm sorry, Sandy. Ciro is next. You can be after Ciro.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question generally about the area around Barclays Center and Williamsburg building, that area, bank building area. I may have missed it, but do you have plans for calming that area and make it much more pedestrian friendly? That seems to be a very busy and sometimes dangerous area. I may have missed your presentation. If I have, I apologize. But if you do have plans, could you just repeat that or let me know what you're doing about that?
Sure. DOT actually has a funded capital project, which on Flatbush Avenue and around Flatbush Avenue that goes from roughly Skimmerhorn Street or Lafayette down to Atlantic. And they're looking at, they're focusing on pedestrian safety and looking at a few different measures. In doing this study, we worked with them on designs for the area around the LIRR station. So, this is One Hanson Place, this is Ashland, and this is Hanson Place. Along some of the edges around the Flatbush, and particularly around Atlantic and 4th, DOT is proposing to build additional pedestrian islands and curb extensions to allow for more safer, shorter crossings along that crazy intersection. One other thing they're doing is as they extend the 4th Avenue bike lane, they're hoping to create a protected crossing across Flatbush and down Ashland. So this rendering shows a proposed raised shared street that DOT again would design and build with DDC along Ashland, Hampton, and additional measures for greening and increasing street trees. And these are raised planters.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm sure my colleagues at DOT will begin to share more about their project as they start the design process. I think that project is not meant to go into construction until 2024 or 2025, if I'm not mistaken.
Next board member, please. Next committee member.
If anyone is unfamiliar with the raise hand feature, you will find that at the bottom of your screen if you click on reactions. Thank you. Next is Sandy Barboza. Sandy, you're muted.
Unmute. How's that? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, so I was saying, I think Ciro sort of hit on my question. In your presentation, you said something, it went fast for me. 4th and Atlantic would be safer. Is that the triangle and the intersection of Atlantic and Flatbush? And is this?
It would be the edges of the Atlantic Terminal Mall and station along Flatbush and Atlantic. DOT is proposing a few pedestrian islands and additional curb extensions into the street in concrete. So again, that would shorten the crossing time.
Yeah, but that's not here yet. The board, the DOT will, I'm sure, before they make a determination, will come back and make a presentation to us. They always do.
Exactly.
Okay, are you talking about, there was in 2018, they completed pedestrian improvements around the plaza to make it a shorter crossing, for instance, for pedestrians and some signal timing, and is that what it's about?
They're looking to do, there is a proposal circulating, does not come to the committee yet, to make additional major changes on this area. The Downtown Brooklyn Partnership is not making that presentation. What they've done is some things that have been proposed, which are not as major as what's kicking around. I'm sure DOT, before that is finalized, there is a private group made a proposal that I saw in the newspaper the other day that is not before the committee yet. I have not, it's not been presented for me to DOT either. I'm just waiting, I'm waiting for what that proposal will be. It's not ready yet.
That's right. Thank you, Sue.
Next person, please.
Next up, we're moving to the public. There are no more CB2 members who indicated they wish to speak. Brendan Gibbons, Lucy Coteen, and Nicole Murray.
Can I remind everyone that you have 2 minutes? Nicole says not her.
Can you hear me?
Who is
Hi.
it?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, who are you?
Lucy Coteen.
Okay, thank you.
So I had a question, a couple of questions. One was on Fulton Street. I wanted clarity on what the plan is for the part of Fulton Street going through the mall. Will it remain 2 ways to buses? Will delivery trucks be allowed to make deliveries there with all the businesses on the mall? And I just wanted to mention, I walked that from Court Street back to Fort Greene the other day, and that, and I paid attention to the sidewalk. That sidewalk is very wide and comfortable. It wasn't a lot, it was the middle of the day and there still wasn't a lot of people traffic there. So I wanted you to clarify your plan for Fulton Street. That's my first question.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? I think I had a few technical issues, but I think I'm still on the call on my phone.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So on Fulton Street, again, this is still in the proposal phase. We're proposing essentially two improvements. One is really looking at how to alleviate bus congestion while also creating more a protected bike lane through that part of the Fulton Mall for a lot of the bicyclists who actually bike down the Fulton Mall anyway. One thing that we've noticed, there actually is no delivery allowed on Fulton Street. All the businesses have delivery zones off of Fulton. However, you do see the UPS, Amazon, etc. van that really clogs up the street and really slows down buses on both lanes. So we are looking at a possibility of just making Fulton Street a one-way bus lane with the other direction looping back on the bus lane on Livingston Street. That bus loop and route was actually what was used while Fulton Street was under construction for the capital sidewalk improvements. Your second piece on the sidewalk itself, we agree that the Fulton Street sidewalk is fairly wide. It does get very crowded. What we're proposing is not to rebuild the sidewalk or really do any capital construction. Rather, we're looking at creating more hospitable environment on the sidewalk. Right now, it's all concrete with some a few minimal trees and also a few trees that are dead and not doing that well. So we're proposing adding our expanded planter bed to and renovating the planter tree beds on Fulton and to create an understory and possibly add new seating. So it's more green and kind of has a different environment and atmosphere for shoppers and residents.
I wanted to comment. I've taken the bus. Hey, hello, my time's not up.
Go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead, Lucy. Go ahead, Lucy.
Okay, I'm talking. I keep getting muted. I've taken that bus many times and I find it works really well. And to me, it's something that's working. And I ask you not to change it from a one-way to a two-way. I don't find there are 4 buses, I believe, on there, 4 different buses, and they do just fine.
Yeah, there are multiple bus lanes that run through Fulton. I believe there are either 4 or 6. DOT and New York City Transit has noted severe slowdowns on the bus, especially during rush hour with all sorts of cars, vehicles clogging on Fulton Street, delivery vans, and other things. It's a really important route for East Brooklynites to get to downtown Brooklyn.
Well, Schermerhorn and Livingston are much more crowded, and there's all that construction taking up a lane on, I think it's Schermerhorn. But no, I think you'll just make it much worse throughout the area, and congestion will multiply incredibly. But I have one more comment. All that big yellow play structure or whatever that thing is, when I look at that, I see an accident waiting to happen. And I think of Hudson Yards and the vessel where people were jumping off of it for suicide. So I really don't feel like we need play structures.
Yeah, Lucy, we've actually received a lot of comments about that. It's really meant as a sort of a playful means to inspire ideas. It's not been approved.
It's not a literal play structure.
Yeah.
Right. So from our architect's perspective, that area right now is used with a lot of parking from various people on the parking lot as well as on the Bluestone of Columbus Park. Our designers and some of the feedback we've gotten from other stakeholders have noted that it would be an interesting area for a sculpture or some other element. We are not going to design it. That would be something that we would advocate for the Parks Department and to the community. So that yellow band is just a gesture to that. It is not a literal play structure or literal sculpture for people to walk on.
Right. Okay. Well, just okay. Disturbing to be wasting money when there's so many.
Thank you. The comments are closed.
No money wasted, Lucy.
Okay, after Lucy, we have Brandon Gibbons.
Hello, thank you. I'm here on behalf of myself, but also on behalf of the 400 and 500 State Street Block Association. Hi, Belinda. How are you? It's been a couple months. Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm good,
support-
thanks.
Hey, we support this plan. We're really excited about it, but I have to advocate for Third Avenue and that it gets more attention in this plan. Third Avenue is kind of sandwiched in between the downtown Brooklyn bid and the Atlantic Avenue bid, and it really doesn't have a lot of attention. In 2012, I think 4th Avenue northbound was closed. All of that traffic was rerouted to Third Avenue, including 18-wheeler trucks. And as you might know, we are getting 2 schools. There's already one, but now we'll have 2 schools on the corner of State and 3rd Street, State and 3rd Avenue, a new elementary school and a high school. There really can't be a better location for redoing our streetscape and examining the traffic pattern than State Street and 3rd Avenue. It's not safe right now. There's no way there can be a protected bike lane on Schermerhorn if 3rd Avenue is a 18-wheeler truck route. That's just not possible. I'm not an engineer, but that's not gonna work. We've been in touch with DOT, we're in touch with our outgoing and incoming council member, but we need the support of downtown Brooklyn, we need the support of the community board. 3rd Avenue is really dangerous. We now have a traffic cop every day on our corner because someone has deemed it that unsafe. So we really need help here.
Thank you for your comments. I will note that. There is a proposed plaza or expansion of a plaza along 3rd and Schermerhorn. So hopefully that will help with some of the safety and with the schools along that development. But we will note that and speak to DOT about that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, after Brendan is William Farrell.
Hi, yes. Just making sure that this is the right time to speak about the proposed plaza on Fulton and Vanderbilt.
No, excuse me. No,
it's
it's not. We're
Okay,
talking about
sorry.
downtown Brooklyn. I'm
I
sorry.
That's
That's
okay.
for the
I
other
tried
go around.
confirming that. Anyway, I support this one too. It's really good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you looking for, are you looking for a letter of support?
Not at the moment.
No.
The Transportation Committee did provide letters of support for our Public Design Commission applications. We wanted to give an update to the committee, given that we have projects under construction and some progress that has been made.
Well, I thank you for that. I think it is an interesting presentation and we look forward as other changes in the area take place. And thank you for the presentation.
Thanks, Sid. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
All right. Have a great night.
Oh, excuse me. Ms. Jessica Greenbaum is the last person on the list.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Okay, I'm a newcomer to this list. So I want to join in with my longtime Fort Greene resident, Lucy Coteen, in asking you not to spend the money on this change in downtown Brooklyn. I don't know if you guys, have you seen what happens to large planters in downtown Brooklyn? Also, I'm thinking about all the people who shop and are standing there with huge shopping bags are then going to have to walk around the block to get the bus home. Like, why? You know, this is a two-way street for a reason. I also have been traveling that street often daily for years, and there's congestion during rush hour like there is in pretty much every single other part of the city during rush hour. That is just part of the way it goes. So I just want to second her request that the money be saved for a different kind of plan, and that this, which has worked for Brooklynites for decades, be left as it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go on to the next agenda item. The next agenda item is the Presentation on community vision discussion for Vanderbilt and Gates Plaza. Emily Wanderhoff and Lanique McCoy, and I apologize if I pronounced either of those incorrectly. Emily, I don't know if who's gonna speak first.
No, we should go to Emily Weidenhoff. She should be here.
Yep, great. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for having us. I'm going to share my screen. My name is Emily Weidenhoff. I'm the Director of Public Space at New York City DOT. We're here tonight to talk about Gates Avenue. Oh, sorry. Beautiful. Gates Avenue in between Fulton and Vanderbilt. As many of you know, we at DOT, and particularly in the public space unit, have been working with you and other stakeholders along the corridor for over a decade now to deliver bus, pedestrian, and cyclist improvements to this corridor. A long time ago, this was a slip that we had talked about and looked at improving. That ultimately led to a capital project which helped normalize the intersection and add a little bit of benches and some bioswales and extra planting that you see here right along Fulton at Gates. As I'm sure everyone knows, following the terrible tragedy in September, there was really a renewed effort both at DOT, but really from a lot of neighbors, neighborhood stakeholders, and leadership to call for DOT to rethink and make even further investments in Gates and in creating safety and pedestrian enhancements at this location. And so tonight, I am here with our community partners, Lanique McCoy from Discovery Pit Stop, as well as Christina Chavez from Fab Fulton. And before I go through the rest of my slides, I just want to let each of them introduce themselves and share a little bit about their background, their organization, and their investment in this project. So Lanique.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight. I just wanted to introduce Discovery Pit Stop. We are located on the corner of Vanderbilt and Gates Avenue. We are an early learning environment. We have children from ages 4 months to 4 years old. Upon us opening Discovery Pit Stop, you know, we were always a bit concerned about our location, primarily because of the busyness at that intersection, and just, you know, our teachers face a lot of trepidation when they're crossing that intersection to go to neighborhood parks, to go on walks. So we've always attempted to avoid it as best we can. And of course, the crash that occurred in September just, you know, shook our school community. Because it was something that we always worried would happen, and it was almost like the realization of our worst nightmare. So we immediately reached out to community leaders and trying to figure out what steps we could take to support any changes that would prioritize pedestrian safety at that intersection. We had the pleasure of connecting with several community members such as Kevin McGee and Mike Leiden. We've had the pleasure of sitting in with a meeting with Crystal Hudson, and of course, the meeting earlier this month. So we did send, in conjunction with Mike Leiden at Street Plans, a proposal over to DOT and brought attention to this community board as well, and a few other leaders in the community, in an effort to just do whatever we could to support any positive change that could just bring further safety to that intersection. We're worried for, you know, families in the community and for our families at our school as well. And I just did want to share that Apolline, who was killed during the crash in September, her father reached out to me personally prior to this meeting to let me know that he could not attend, and he wanted me to share a message to the community board and to the community at large on their behalf. And I just wanted to share that prior to turning it back over to Emily and Christina. These are his words. "We feel profoundly blessed to see the whole community coming together to honor the memory of our sweet baby Apolline. We hope that this plan can prevent another person from our community from being injured or losing their life in the area." In that intersection alone on that day, there were a total of 4 victims, all lawful pedestrians on the sidewalk or in their car. In the loss of an innocent baby, if the loss of an innocent baby isn't enough to justify this change, perhaps as a community, we can do this in support of the mother or the driver who were severely injured in the accident, or perhaps just to prevent another person we know from being killed at this intersection. Let's not forget we were all babies at some point. During this tragic time, our hope is that we can all proudly come together and leave behind the politics to be the community that we've always been, the one who wants to walk, bike, and drive without worrying about your life, the one who wants to protect each other and save lives. May Apolline's soul rest in peace, and that no family ever has to endure what we are going through, parents of Apolline. And I'm honored to be able to share that on his behalf because, you know, they have not been able to attend these meetings, but did want to address the community. And so thank you for having us here to open up this conversation, and I hope that some change can be brought about.
Thank you so much, Lanique. And now I'm going to turn it over to Christina Chavez, Fab Fulton.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Community Board to Transportation Committee for having us tonight. I'm the Executive Director of the Fulton Area Business Alliance. We serve the businesses, property owners, and residents of Fulton Street between Classen Avenue and Rockwell Place. And we were invited to join as a partner in this, in part due to our long relationship with Department of Transportation maintaining 2 other plazas in the area, Fowler Square and G2WC in Clinton Hill. And we are here tonight to be part of the community conversation and be part of the discussion in regards to a potential plaza for this space. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Emily. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Share my screen again. So looking at the site here, you see, again, we're specifically looking at Gates Avenue in between Vanderbilt and Fulton. We think additional public space here would really help support the 2 nearby bus stops, certainly the daycare, the deli and grocery catty corner to this space, as well as the recent residential growth in the neighborhood. We also think a closure of this slip will really help enhance safety. It eliminates 2 pedestrian crossings, and it also helps simplify the intersection. We also think we can achieve this closure with minimal impact to the traffic network. As we proceed, and we'll talk about this a little bit at the end, we do want to take a look at the traffic, at the signal timing. We know that Vanderbilt and Fulton is a wide intersection that oftentimes sees traffic backup in the AM and PM peak. So we'll certainly look at and understand what's happening from a traffic perspective and look to see if there are ways to mitigate it. But overall, this is a fairly straightforward project from a traffic engineering perspective. As we would look to create a public space here, we would use our typical toolkit. For those of you who remember, this is a photo of Fowler Square way back when it was still paint and gravel. We use markings, various elements like planters, granite blocks, movable furniture, as well as flexible delineators to create a clear, well-defined pedestrian space. This is a design that we would work in coordination, not only with all of you and the larger community, but also with our maintenance partner, Fab Alliance, and Discovery Pit Stop as a programming partner to really design a space that meets all the different needs and also meets the capacity of the bid to maintain. What we would ask that the bid does in the plaza, again, very similar, as Christina said, to the work that they do not only along the corridor, but the work they do at Fowler and at G2. They would be responsible for basic maintenance tasks like bagging trash, picking up and clearing graffiti, snow removal, setting out and closing movable furniture, and horticulture care. It's also critical for us that there is positive, inclusive programming in our public spaces. This really helps promote positive use. And so this is a big part of FAB, Discovery Pit Stop's role in curating programming that would help support the wider community. Plazas are public space, and so they are not exclusive to any particular entity programming the space. Anyone can apply for a SAPO permit, but certainly as we think about the design and the space moving forward with the adjacent residential property, I think we're really looking to design and curate programming for more of a passive use hours of operation and types of smaller scale programming that really are more respectful of the Gateway Triangle garden space as well as the residential properties. And then lastly, we have Plaza rules that allow for a series of code of conduct type rules to be enforced by NYPD. Gateway Triangle is Parks property, and so that would be continued to be maintained and fall under Parks regulation. But as we work to develop a plan, we'd work closely with them and make sure that the whole space is thought of and kind of cared for in a comprehensive way. So last slide here, we'd like to talk through some next steps. Here with you tonight. Early in the new year, we would look to do some ongoing engagement, especially with the folks in the adjacent residential buildings to fully understand their concerns, issues, questions. And then we would host a public workshop, most likely virtually, where everyone's invited and we could really start to talk through a proposal in greater detail, be able to share with you some more specifics, things like parking numbers, things like vehicle counts and peak hours, a little bit more of analysis on the technical side. We would also conduct, like I said, and look at traffic analysis and fully understand how this closure would impact the larger network. We'd also be using the feedback from the workshop to start to refine and develop an engineered plan that we would review not only internally at DOT, but also with emergency services, FDNY, NYPD, and so on to incorporate their guidance and access needs. Our next round of the Plaza program officially opens in April. So at that time, that's when we would be looking for FAB to apply formally as the partner to the Plaza program, all while engaging in ongoing conversations with the community, and then ultimately having a proposal that we would bring to you, to the Transportation Committee, and look for a resolution of support. And then ultimately we'd look to implement the public space sometime in the summer or fall of 2022. And with that, I will stop sharing and we open it up to the committee for any questions you might have.
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to welcome Council Member Elect Hudson to the meeting. I don't know if this is your first meeting, but I would like to formally recognize you. Obviously, you're going to be, either you are or going to be, well, you've been elected, our new council member. And I open the floor up for you as a council member to make whatever comments you want.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I don't believe this is my first Transportation Committee meeting ever, but it's definitely the first in a long time. So thank you for having me. You know, I hosted a street safety conversation a few weeks ago. and have been in, communication with the folks who have been leading this effort. And I really commend them, Lanique in particular from Discovery Pit Stop, and Mike Leiden, and others who have really taken it upon themselves to, push this proposal full steam ahead, and also really to DOT, who's taken it on, with seemingly their full support. And so, I'm also here to continue to offer my full support for this project. I look forward to finding capital funding or money in the budget, whatever might be needed from the city council end to make sure that we can see this come to fruition, especially in Applene's honor. And, so I look forward to the comments. I know there will be plenty of comments in support of this project, and I hope that we can have a fruitful and productive conversation and hear those who might have some concerns and take that to heart. But really, I'm here in support of the project, and I just want to thank everybody whose diligent efforts have gotten us to this point.
Thank you. I appreciate that. First of all, I didn't understand. We're not going to be asked specifically for a letter of endorsement tonight. Is that correct? We're going to wait till the final plan comes in. Is that correct, Emily?
That's correct. Yes.
So, I mean, this is more of a public information where people will be able to state whatever they want to state. So I just want you to know that there will not be a vote on this tonight. The other thing is we did receive a significant number of letters. I'm not exactly sure the exact number. It was more than 10. Carol-Ann, do you have the number of letters we received on this?
No, I didn't take a final count, but we may be up to about 20.
Wow, that's a significant number. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Carol-Ann to call the board members first. Not the board members, the committee members first, and then we will then have public comments. As I said, 2 minutes, and I ask everyone to be respectful. And if you're going to repeat exactly what someone said, I ask you just to say me too, and please, so we don't spend here till 4 in the morning. We will try to get to everyone to speak. Thank you. Carol-Ann, start calling.
Sure. First up, John Quint. Next will be Ernest Augustus.
Thank you, Carol-Ann. Well, I had 2 questions. One Sid asked already, so I'm glad that our only function tonight is basically to be a forum for everyone to speak. But I have a general question that doesn't go to this, but to Emily and to people at DOT. How come we get this treatment? How come this issue gets this treatment where you come to us before you've done the plans, as opposed to come to us 2 weeks before you're going to implement some other plans? Can you pass on your method of operation to everybody else in DOT? Because we've had only fait accomplis for the last year. We haven't had a chance to talk about something before you tell us that you're going to implement it 2 weeks later, before even the entire board could discuss the issue.
Hello, this is Keith Bray from DOT, so I'll just fill this. John, it depends on the projects and what it is, and so I don't really know the 2-week notification that you're talking about.
Navy Street. What about Navy Street?
If that project was first presented to the board like in 2020, so that was not 2 weeks before implementation. So that's not
But
true.
the last time somebody came to the board and made the presentation, it was the week before you were going to implement it. So
No.
I just want to, you're here. I'm glad that you're on, Keith, because I think this is a method that I think everybody on the committee and everybody in the community would appreciate, because we have had people at the meeting when we talked about Navy Street who were from the community who knew nothing about what was going on because you had done all that planning in the background. So I'm not going to engage any further because I want to talk, everybody wants to talk about this specific project, but I wanted to make it the comment on behalf of the committee, because we're here every month and we have not had this kind of advance notice and a chance to discuss it among ourselves and more importantly, with all the members of the committee, the community who need to have a chance to hear about these things.
Ernest Augustus? Okay, not hearing from Ernie, who might not be, okay, since you've unmuted yourself, Ernie, is that right?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
we
good.
can hear you.
All right. I like to extend my condolences to this family. I'm a new grandfather myself. My grandson is roughly 8 months old. I do have a concern about this proposal, and I do thank former, present City Councilwoman Lori Cumbo for hosting a town hall on December 6th. It was the first time that we heard of this proposal, and I hope it wasn't presented as a done deal. My concern about this location and this proposal is that there's sort of a disconnect. This site, Gates and Vanderbilt, was basically foisted upon Clinton Hill Fort Greene. We had no say in this project, and this was a New York City Department of Transportation Vision Zero project, a capital project that basically redesigned this location. Yes, it was a two-way street, and traditional traffic engineers already supported the fact that a two-way street tended to slow down traffic. You cannot accelerate, cannot speed. But this was the Vision Zero vision, and it was purportedly to guarantee that there won't be any more traffic fatalities. And I like to say that when we undertake discussion on this location, that we begin to examine, and I think there's an opportunity here to re-examine some of this Vision Zero philosophy. We had taken it as whole cloth. Now we have a horrific accident, and the solution is to take away cars. The people who live in Clinton Hill, Fort Greene, had nothing to do with that baby's death. I think there's two liabilities. One may be the city of New York and its design, and we should look at it and do a traffic analysis and look at design, and the driver. And I'm going to leave it there, but I'm looking forward to a conversation in January with the rest of the community regarding, who is liable for this. The answer seems to be, they're not going to have any death if you take away cars from everybody. That has nothing to do with that accident. So I'm going to leave it there.
Okay, next, please. Carol Ann, who's next?
John Doe, and then Brian Howard.
It was my understanding, and again, this is a really tragic death, that we could not tie any of the street geometry to this very tragic death. And if a tragic death causes a street to be closed down, we're going to close down the whole city at some point in time. But my point is that we are looking at all of these changes in isolation. All of them are looking to minimize traffic and reduce parking. What we are not looking at is the overall impact. We're getting all of these tall buildings that are going to bring all this people in with all this additional traffic, and there's no overall plan. We look at everything in isolation and we address it like it doesn't have any impact outside. And this Gates Avenue is just another example. We can close it off. What happens with Vanderbilt Avenue bus traffic? What happens with Fulton Street bus traffic? What happens when you activate all of these plazas? And we still have to get Grubhub and Amazon and everything else. Where is the overall traffic plan for the entire district. We can't keep looking at everything in isolation and making it sound okay, and it impacts everything else around it. That's enough, Mr. Meyer.
Next, please. Next, Carol Ann, call the next person.
Brian?
Thank you. I just to John's point about the lack of a plan, DOT is putting together the streets master plan. They released their first version of it just a couple of weeks ago, in which they begin to tackle all the items that the council asked them to address, including targets for protected bus lanes, or for bus lanes, protected bike lanes. So I do think that we do have a comprehensive transport streets management project moving forward, and that is the place to offer feedback. I also wanted to note, that when our committee chair opened the meeting, he said, we could disagree without being disagreeable, and the idea that any project or anything that happens in the city is foisted upon the idea of the community, because there are many people in this room who live in the community that say nearly everybody who is in this meeting right now is somehow part of either their neighborhood community, community district community. The community is not defined by the people who oppose particular changes we're looking at tonight. So really everybody in this room is the community. And if we're talking about the community having its say, isn't that why we're all here tonight?
Thank you, Brian. Next person, please.
Okay, are there any more committee members or board members that would like to speak before we move into public commentary? Okay, seeing none, we will attempt to call the names in the order in which they were listed. Please, if it's not in the order in which you submitted your name, please excuse us. We're multitasking here. No harm is meant. So I will begin. First off is Ms. Renee Collymore.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Renee Collymore, head of the Vanderbilt Avenue Block Association and your former Democratic District Leader. Yesterday, incoming Mayor Eric Adams selected a new police commissioner for many reasons, but one characteristic that he identified in her was emotional intelligence, the ability to be able to place yourself in someone else's shoes. As I'm born and raised right here on Vanderbilt Avenue, I see cars daily, bumper to bumper, between Gates and Green during rush hours, where drivers will become impatient and then cross over the double lines, speed down towards Gates Avenue just to make a left turn. A woman just told me 2 days ago that she was hit at that same corner as baby Apolline, but luckily she lived. As I am not talking as a person that lives far away or in another area of the district, I witnessed this intersection as hazardous, and as I witnessed the killing of baby Apolline. How is it that a mother of 4 can compare the loss, or anyone can compare the loss of human life to the loss of a parking space? Where is the compassion to save lives? Where is the emotional intelligence from our leaders? Where is the empathy to...
Mr. Quinn, could you stop the clock? Ms. Collymore, you have frozen. Ms. Collymore? Okay, Ms. Collymore, I'm going to stop your video feed so that we can hopefully still hear you. Ms. Collymore, are you with us? Ms. Church, I recommend that we give her back her time when she's available.
Is she back, or want to start someone?
She is fully frozen.
All right, let's go to the next person, and we'll come back to her for her to complete her presentation.
Okay, next couple of names: Joshua Kendall, Brendan Gibbons, and Alicia.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello, hi, I'm Josh Kendall. I'm a Clinton Hill parent, neighborhood resident for a decade, and a Brooklyn resident for 25 years. I'm speaking in support of Apolline's Garden, the downtown public realm plan.
We can't hear him.
You
I
cannot hear me?
can't hear him.
You cannot hear me?
I can hear you. You're
A little louder.
Oh, okay.
That's
25-year resident. I'm speaking in support of Applene's Garden Downtown Public Realm Plan, and most importantly, to make the city more safe and green for everyone. That's children as well as elderly pedestrians, drivers, and bikers. Safety for everyone. Speaking personally, I've already raised one child in Brooklyn and now have a toddler. Applene's death by a motor vehicle is a wake-up call not only for the proposed square at Gates and Vanderbilt, but for the whole neighborhood. It was only 2 weeks ago that my own child, on our way to his daycare, was almost struck by a car on Clinton Avenue, driving up onto the sidewalk at speed. For the last 6 months, I've seen such driving behavior literally every day. There are 5 preschools within 5 blocks of where Apolline was killed. There are many more in the neighborhood and many more elementary schools. There will be more street violence caused by driving if we don't think and implement ambitious policies for Fort Greene and Clinton Hill to slow driving and making the neighborhood safe for everyone, both the 25% of local residents who own cars and the 75% who must walk and bike and risk their lives to go about their days. They need this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please.
I think, Carolyn, you said me, so.
Identify yourself, please.
This is Brendan Gibbons. I won't take up more than probably 10 or 15 seconds, except to say that for the record, I support this. And I think as a city, not only do we have to start making changes that make the city safer and prevent a tragedy like this, but why is everything we do contingent on what developers want and what people with cars want and what people at the very top want and need? We need to do things that are based in the community, which I think this is. So I support it and yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Alicia's next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Raymond, and I live in Clinton Hill. I've been in Brooklyn for over 15 years. This portion of Gates Avenue is essentially a street running through a green space. It's a green space that's used by children from the Discovery Pit Stop daycare, the other 4 nearby preschools, and the surrounding community as a play area. This small block of Gates is especially dangerous because the traffic changes from being 2-way to 1-way for this one block, increasing the risk of confusion, traffic injuries, and, as we've unfortunately seen, deaths. I realize that we will be sacrificing a small number of parking spaces to get this done, but prioritizing the safety and lives of our children, our community's children, over a handful of parking spaces seems like a no-brainer. It's the right thing to do. Initiatives like this and the downtown Brooklyn Public Realm vision make our communities more livable, greener, and safer. We are in a pandemic. Safe and open air commuting, be it walking or biking, has never been more important. So I'm optimistic that CB2 will do the right thing here and support this proposal for Appolline's Garden and shutting that block off to traffic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, can we have Ms. Collymore regain her time? She's back on.
Renee, you've got about another minute left.
Wonderful. I would like to let everyone know that I was there when this accident took place. I'm an eyewitness. I will never forget the cries and the pain of agony from the father that I saw and I heard. And I would like everyone to know that has changed my life. This is the right time to do right. We cannot make this an issue of race. We can't make this an issue of cars against bikes. We can't make this some a theory that we've made up in our heads. We have to make sure that not another life is taken by cars on that area, right in that intersection. This is a dangerous section. As my family has been here since 1940, I can tell you, I come out of that house, I go into the house, and I see everything that happens there. We need safety, and I need just everyone to, if you can, open up your hearts and understand that we can sacrifice 6 or 7 cars for the life of another child or individual. Thank you so much.
I think Christine's next.
No, Christine's not next. I'm sorry.
I
Erin?
believe I was next, yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for bringing this topic today. You might have seen both of my children hop up in the background. I've lived in the area for years. I have a car. I have 2 small children, one of whom is enrolled at Discovery Pit Stop. I very strongly support this project. I see people driving crazily in that intersection every day. I think it would be lovely to have the additional space that's available for the community. You can already see how other plazas in the neighborhood get used in a very positive way, and they're used, by the whole community, for people eating outside, for people playing. I can't imagine a nicer change to this intersection. I won't go on and on, but I am also just impressed with the professionalism and the planning, and I would love to see this implemented as quickly as possible. So I will cede the rest of my time, but thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. I'm not exactly sure who's next. Taya.
Ben Chadwick, followed by Jessica Greenbaum.
All right. Hi, I'm Ben Chadwick. I live in Clinton Hill, and I just wanted to express my support for the Plaza plan. My partner and I will be having our first child in April, and we were both horrified by the accident in our neighborhood back in September. So I just want to agree with all the points made by everyone ahead of me who has spoken up in favor of the plan. We've lived here for several years, and we hope to raise our child here. For the 2 of us, the garden would serve as an important reminder of what happened there, and the plaza would mark a meaningful change, symbolic of a future where our leaders demonstrate genuine concern for the lives of children and for the environment. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica Greenbaum. I live on Vanderbilt Avenue, a half a block from Gates. I've lived here for 35 years. I've raised both my girls here. And I want to second Ernest Augustus's point that we're having a disconnect here. There's no parallelism between the life of children and parking spaces. We're talking about something bigger, as John Dew also mentioned, which is an overall larger plan. In the 35 years I've lived here, I guess I've seen about maybe 300 parking spaces lost. And to Renee Collimore's point about the frustration during rush hour, rush hour starts at 3 o'clock on Vanderbilt Avenue. And the idea of closing off another lane is not going to make that better. We have streets that are closed up on the other side of Atlantic. I did not understand the point that this was going to support bus stops by having that closed. You're either taking the bus or you're not. And whether that street is open really doesn't affect that. What happens with a lot of the so-called Vision Zero things, as well meant as they are, is that people end up driving longer. The one-way streets, the things that are closed off, we're driving more, not less. And I really just want to ask that this be seen from the larger point of view. And thank you.
Thank you. Next, Evan McGee.
Thank you.
Followed by Ann Bush. Please remember your spaces. Thank you.
Thanks. So my name is Kevin, and I would like to speak in favor of this proposal, although I have to say I'm also very much in favor of the proposal for downtown Brooklyn too. I'm at Clinton Hill in Willoughby. I've been living here for almost a decade now, and I've lived here longer than I've ever lived anywhere else. I'm very fond of this community. I care deeply about my neighbors, their safety and their well-being. And I also have been very deeply concerned about the failures of Vision Zero and the rise in crashes that have impacted pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists recently. That is really my primary concern, but others have made a lot of good points on this. So I want to speak to one of my secondary concerns, and that is just that our community really deserves a livable environment and shared streets. When these types of proposals come up in this community, we have historically, unfortunately, failed to benefit from them for the primary purpose of preserving free parking. And I think it really needs to be emphasized that According to US Census data, only 35% of households in this neighborhood actually own cars. So it's a vast majority of us that do not. And the households that do own cars do skew towards the higher end of the income spectrum. So public parking is very much a matter of equitable use of public space. And nevertheless, despite that, motorists have really dominated this space for decades. So I know that some people really do need cars, and I sympathize with that. And I wouldn't suggest anything extreme like getting rid of all cars and getting rid of parking, but we do need livable streets and shared spaces. And I think that this is a very reasonable compromise that would benefit the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Bush, followed by Rosaria Sinisi.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Bush. I'm the president for Society for Clinton Hill. And I have submitted written testimony to the committee along with Citizens for Responsible Neighborhood Planning of Clinton Hill and Fort Greene, as well as Fort Greene Association. And I should tell you that the site that we're speaking about is exactly where Fort Greene and Clinton Hill meet on Vanderbilt Avenue. That's one of the boundaries. I should also say that our letter was written based on the fact that we thought there was a vote tonight. So, I'm just gonna give you a couple of highlights. The solution to a traffic accident, although it was horrific, is not a street closure. The community is, in fact, in agreement for a memorial for baby Apolline at the site of the triangle garden that exists already there. The neighborhood is under a lot of pressure, as it is with the open streets surrounding, where streets are closed to traffic. And parking spaces, as we all know, is at a premium. And if you remove this street, close this street, that's an additional 8 spaces. Community input is the big and vital part that was my concern, and it remains my concern. So I'm glad there's no vote tonight because we need community input to continue. The town hall meeting that was held, we did not get advance notice, and the notice that was given inappropriately by tweet, or that's how we received it. So going forward, we hope that the elected officials and DOT will commiserate with the community, because that's what needs to happen to really make a plan work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Sinisi, followed by Jeff Schwain. Okay, Mr. Schwain.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Citizens for Responsible Neighborhood Planning of Clinton Hill and Fort Greene opposes this proposal based on what we've learned about it so far for the following reasons. With all due respect, there's a lack of connection between the tragic death of a baby and the idea that closing gates between Vanderbilt and Fulton would prevent another such tragedy. The culprit was not street design, it was a reckless wrong-way driver. And I'd also like to add that in the December 6th meeting, when DOT representatives were presenting this, there was mention of an avenue being kept open for emergency vehicle access where the current street is across the plaza. So if that's actually the case, then I don't see how this proposal would actually prevent anybody from repeating exactly the same tragedy that we had. Every community includes those who need vehicular transportation for their work requirements or a necessity to transport multiple small children or to accommodate disabilities. 31% of people living in the census tracts comprising Clinton Hill, which is on the east side of this site, in the 2010 census were over 45. They're more likely to have medical issues and disabilities, making access to public transportation difficult if they need to walk to train stations without elevators or multiple blocks to a bus stop. And they're also a lot less likely to cycle. So we urge our elected representatives and the city agencies to serve all their constituents and not just some. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schwain, followed by Ms. Rayburn.
Hi, I'm Jeff Schwain, a longtime resident of Fort Greene. About 10 years ago, I was hit by a driver while crossing the street. They had sped straight through a red light. I remember rising up in the air, and landing on the car's hood and windshield, smashing it. I was terrified and I thought I was paralyzed. I went to the hospital for treatment. Luckily, I was relatively okay, but I don't wish this traumatic event on anyone. I bet we all know a handful of people that have been killed by cars. I know I have. We shrug off these things as accidents and say that they couldn't have been prevented. I'm here to remind everyone today that that isn't the case. Safe pedestrian space, street calming, daylighting, slowing down cars. These things time and again have been shown to save lives through many, many studies. We have the chance today to save future lives through these enhanced street calming measures. I'm in full support of the proposed changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rayburn?
Yes, I'm Sandy Rayburn, and yes, I'm an old lady at 76 with an even older husband at 83. I had a 99-year-old mother who lived with us and who died last year, but who we were always able to drive to the doctor appointments, or who was always able to be rescued door to door when the EMT came to take her on a stretcher to the hospital in several emergencies. Here's a fact: about 1.2 million New York City residents are 65 and older. There's an exponential growth forecasted of elders and the old in New York City that are not about to travel on bikes, with rare exceptions, and certainly not in icy and snowy New York City winter weather. As the old lady that I am, you can take that to the bank. This plan to shut gates to cars is ageist. Anyone not under a rock knows that Accessoride was always awful pre-COVID and is basically defunct. Old people, the disabled, are a protected class and are being harmed by these irresponsible and illegal shenanigans now planned to further prevent accessing realistic transportation. Expecting families to pay for early loved ones are in the same situation must be at least as valued as those who have been harmed by scofflaw reckless drivers. In addition, the de Blasio administration has continued to flout the Federal Americans with Disability Act laws requiring equal access and egress in public transportation, and it's been ignored for decades. Old people and the disabled not able to hop on a bike also denied access to the MTA subways because installing elevators has been left to falter in most of New York City. Elders and the disabled are considered disposable and usually get the shaft rather than the elevator cars they need to get to the subway itself. Think twice before you rubber stamp this egregious theft of public space. Instead, work to mitigate transportation access for these New Yorkers whose voices are never heard or dismissed as irrelevant. This should be your priority.
Okay, next. So I see we have, is there an Ori on?
That's my son's name. He took over my computer.
Oh, okay.
As they do. I just want to say that I support this and I really appreciate all of the comments. I will say I live here over 12 years. I am also a driver. I am a mother. I have multiple concerns going on here. I have to agree though with the comments that I don't know if this is necessarily going to solve the problem, which doesn't mean I'm not in support of it. I am. I think a big part of the problem that nobody has touched on here at all is the fact that all of these street closures, open streets, open restaurants, blocking emergency vehicles, are infuriating drivers. And whether you're a driver or not, you benefit from drivers. You take an Uber when it's raining and you don't want to ride your bike. You have a delivery coming to your house. The drivers and the delivery people and the residents are all so furious that it's causing, I think in large part, these enraged situations where people are driving up on the sidewalk on Clinton Avenue. They're losing their minds because they can't simply get around. They can't drop people off. They can't get their loved ones. They can't get where they need to go. And I haven't seen anything whatsoever that's addressed that at all. I have a closure here on my street. Emergency vehicles can't pass through. They sit all night long. I see fire trucks trying to rescue people that can't get through, that are honking. I see ambulances all night that are honking, that can't get through. They have to get out of their vehicle while someone is dying and move street barricades, et cetera. So I really think that the frustration of the constant street closures is affecting what's happening to a degree with the drivers. I just think it's something that's relevant that people should look at, but I do support any area, especially a street like this, where I think it does make sense to open up that green space. It's not a particularly busy street from what I've seen, but that's my opinion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. John Mahan, followed by Eben Falconer, and I'm sorry if I've mutilated your name.
This is John Mahan. I'm a member of the Fort Greene condominium community. And can you hear me, yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and I would like to oppose the closing of Gates Avenue at this time. No, I will submit a written proposal later on. I've lived here for 30 years, and as previously stated, that is not going to eliminate the problem of traffic accidents on that corner or for the safety of the children. I am sorry for the death of the child, of the person who was injured, but I would like to say that that is not going to resolve the issue. We here at Fort Greene need that area, and that making that a pedestrian plaza is going to cause noise right under my window. That building that was shown in the initial presentation is my building at Gates Avenue, and I don't want a plaza there. Thank you very much for your time, and I will set a written proposal for my development shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Eben Falconer, followed by William Meehan.
I have to say, Caroline, you pronounced my name perfectly, so major.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eben Falconer. I'm a resident neighbor here to many of you in Clinton Hill. I'm obviously also a parent. This is Sophia. I have a vested interest in, she's not just here for the cuteness. She also just wants to learn about democracy. I'm also very much in support of this effort. I walk with my family on the streets all the time. I've been greatly concerned about the rise in reckless driving. I get very anxious walking with her at home, especially when it's dark. My husband also works, we live in Clinton and Lafayette. My husband also works on the other side of Atlantic, and the idea, like knowing what the traffic is like, seeing what it's, thinking of him crossing every day, I'm nervous about it because I've seen just how aggressive the drivers are. I know this isn't up for a vote tonight, but I want to voice my support. I also just want to say that I trust DOT to study the traffic implications for this. I don't think that this is that particular street that we're calling for to be blocked is a particularly busy one. So I welcome that. I hear obviously a lot of my fellow neighbors here asking questions about that, making assumptions about what might be the traffic implications. And I would say I welcome to hear what DOT, how they look at it and what they propose. I also think that a memorial alone is insufficient. What could be a greater testimonial to the sort of tragic loss of this life, an actual change in our neighborhood. And I hope that we can come together and say that pedestrian safety is essential. Thank you.
Thank you. William Meehan, followed by Lucy Cotin. Not hearing Mr. Meehan. Ms. Cotin, please proceed.
Yes, hi. There's no connection. There's nothing unsafe about this street. Closing it does nothing to address the fact that there are irresponsible, reckless people everywhere in our society, including drivers. There's no correlation between the tragic death of the child and the condition of the street. To follow the logic here, removing the street after tragedy, we should remove all structures when accident or murder has taken place. We should close Morningside Park because 2 people were killed there. We should close the many schools where students are murdered with guns. There are tragedies every day. A 6-year-old boy was killed in a Bronx NYCHA residence recently from a clogged compactor chute fire. Absolutely horrifying, but we're not going to close that building. There happen to be 8 parking spaces on the block. The loss of parking must not be trivialized. This is on top of the many, many parking spaces that have been lost to the neighborhood in recent years. At the same time, due to the pandemic, more people in the area have purchased cars. There's far more truck traffic due to a huge increase in deliveries from the likes of Amazon, Fresh Direct, Blue Apron, Grubhub, UPS, etc. Apparently, there's some magical thinking going on that says by removing parking spaces, you remove cars. We all know that in fact, the opposite is true. The result of moving parking space puts more cars on the street, causing drivers to circle the blocks, making dangerous left turns as they seek a place to park, and increases driver frustration. In addition to the burden placed on the people who live here and pay the taxes, there's an enormous burden placed on our working men and women who we all rely on for repairs and work in our buildings and who rely on us to make a living. That is the plumbers, electricians, carpenters, masons, repair people who are all reluctant to take work in this area due to the difficulty of parking.
10 seconds.
Many of them are forced to hire someone just to sit in their car all day so they don't get tickets. How does this create a more just society? And there'll be more noise pollution and air pollution.
Okay, William Meehan, are you on? Okay, moving along. Hilda Cohen and Molly McGohan after, or McGohan, I'm not sure.
Hi, I'm Hilda Cohen. I'm a community member. I'm a past community board member, so hello to everybody. I am speaking in support of the community-driven and community-supported proposal. The closure of the street reduces the opportunity for drivers to make bad choices, and it directly reduces the opportunity for bad and reckless behavior. The design of our streets directly can lead to crashes and fatalities, just as the design of our streets can improve safety for everyone. And the design of our streets can impact the choice of how we get around. Better streets mean we might get out of our cars more and walk there. Safer streets, safer sidewalks, safer cycling, safer transit. My point to make is that the closure of the small final leg of gates and the traffic making turns from and onto gates will need to be further encouraged through engineering and design to yield to crossing pedestrians. The modifications on the original proposal have modifications on Gates and Vanderbilt. These protect pedestrians that are crossing the street, and it slows drivers making turns. I would also recommend that there's a thought to residential loading zones and ambulance users, so that can address the concerns of some of the speakers that we've heard tonight. Again, and in closing, the proposal also complies with the city mandate to address curb management, which is an imperative part of the streets master plan, which is the big plan. It's the big plan that's out in the city. You should actually, everyone should look at it. DOT is having some listening sessions currently at this time. So thank you, and thanks for having the proposal.
Molly McGohan.
Yes, thank you. This is Molly. I'm on my husband's phone. We both wanted to voice our support for Applene's Garden. I also commented in the section. I back a lot of what was said by a number of community members already. We have a 1-year-old daughter who we walk to her daycare on a daily basis, just 5 blocks away. We see reckless drivers every day, and it's so tragic that a family had to experience the loss of their own child to, be able to develop a solution for this. I hear concerns from other community members about parking spots and that this won't address traffic overall. And that is true. We can't address all traffic incidences and all reckless driving in one proposal. But what this proposal does is offer a solution to a real problem, and specifically in the memory of a child who died under our watch. So we fully support this proposal and hope that our community can recognize the tragic loss and make a small step to make it better in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Luby, followed by Allison F.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, hi, I'm Karen Luby, and I'm an administrator at Discovery Pit Stop. And I'd just like to say that I support Applene's Garden 100%. I feel that it would bring a lot of safety to our neighborhood and to all the children and families that travel that area, that corner right there, going to our facility and all the other facilities in the neighborhood, as well as there's a public school, PS 11, and we have a lot of families that travel to that school. The traffic that goes down that small street is very minimal. I stand outside, I watch it through the window. There are not a lot of cars that travel down that street. This plan does not affect any bus routes, as other people have mentioned during this meeting. And the parking spots also are very minimal. It's a few cars and a motorcycle can fit there. I drive every day and I support this. There's so many close calls on those corners, and I don't want to see another life lost. We need to save lives over parking spots. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison F., followed by Pastor Alex Williams.
Hello, I'm Allison Fisher. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes? Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm a relatively new member of the community. I live just a block away down Fulton Street. It's been so nice to see this community-driven and community-supported proposal. I'd just like to point out that a lot of these community members have had no say in the status quo, which is kind of the way that the streets have been laid out. I agree with all the supporters. I think it's a good plan. The trade-off here is a relatively small slip with a clear alternate route, very minimal parking. And I just think that this plan is a great memorial for Abilene, can help support lots of mobility limited users in the area, and kind of protect them from car traffic. So thank you.
Pastor Alex? Not hearing him. Rosalind Hubina, followed by Neil Kimet.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Can?
Yes,
we
we can.
can.
Okay. Yeah, there is no comparing life to parking spaces. That's absurd. There's no connection. That stem of Gates Avenue allowed relief of extreme congestion at the intersection of Vanderbilt and Fulton. Cars could simply turn off of the intersection and make their way onto Fulton Street. The forced redesign of our streets in the last years in the name of Vision Zero have failed. They've created more congestion and more problems. Street safety hasn't worked. The statistics of driver incidents, accidents, crashes have gone up. It is the failure of the city, of DOT and of DMV and Vision Zero to allow reckless drivers that have multiple violations to remain on the road. That is what everyone is missing. We talk about the reckless drivers crossing yellow lines. We talk about them going the wrong way on a street. This man had several violations and a judge just let him off. He lost his license to drive for a number of times. What we need is a comprehensive method of training drivers at the very beginning and not giving them licenses if they are not qualified to be on the road. And we should remove multiple violators off the road. There should be a program, and that would be a better way to name it in memory of this child, like the Amber Alerts were named after a kidnapped child. Only 2 weeks ago, the city addressed that they're going to be going after 6,000 violators. What has taken so long? And they're going to begin talking with the state. What has taken so long? They have to really have a program of educating drivers before they allow them on the road and taking them off the road. And by the way, free parking, the income from drivers is 3%.
Hello, we have many people waiting to speak. Please make your comments very quickly. And please, when your name is called, be prepared to unmute yourself. Next up, Neil Kimet, followed by Andrew Rose Gregory.
Hi everyone, my name is Neil. I'm a resident of Fort Greene. I walk and run by the by that little triangle many times a week. I'm massively in favor of this proposal. I think the way that we reduce accidents like this is we create safe streets. We make it so that by definition these accidents can't happen. We do that by like a very minimal loss of parking, which cannot be compared to the loss of life, which unfortunately happened.
Assholes.
So the blame doesn't lie with just sole reckless drivers. The blame lies with the design of our streets. One other quick little thing I just wanted to touch on a point Christine made about emergency vehicle access. I also live by one of the closed streets, and in my experience, everything I've seen is emergency vehicle access is a lot easier and a lot quicker when a street is closed to cars because there's not a lot of traffic in the way. Turns out fire engines can just go straight through barricades. It's really quite trivial. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Just a huge fan of this proposal and support it fully. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Rose Gregory, followed by David Clark.
I want to speak up in favor of this proposal. First of all, I just want to say I really disagree with those of the attendees who've said that this proposal is being pushed on the community or foisted on the community. It was designed by a member of the community, Mike Lydon, in cooperation with a school that's in the community. Obviously, there are a ton of us here that are here supporting the proposal. It just doesn't make sense to me. I understand there's disagreement about the proposal, but it doesn't make sense to me to say that the DOT is foisting on this on us. It's coming from in the community. Alicia and Hilda and I went to the park in Fort Greene. We've met each other over organizing for this, but we become friends, and we collected 124 signatures in just over an hour. People are excited about this proposal. I also just wanted to say that I want to thank the DOT for being forward thinking on this. And I want to thank Councilmember Hudson for joining. Our neighborhood can only go as far as our leadership will take us. And just a brief personal anecdote, I attended Lori Cumbo's call last week. I spoke in favor of this proposal. I said that I'm a car driver. I need my car to take a family member to the hospital several times a month, but I still support this proposal. Even though, despite the fact it gets rid of some parking spaces, I think we should reduce parking in the neighborhood. And it was remarkable to me that at the end of the meeting, Councilmember Cumbo used me as an example of someone who opposed the proposal because I said I needed to take my family member to the hospital. I feel like Councilmember Cumbo intentionally or unintentionally didn't listen to what I was asking for. And I'm hopeful that our new leadership and that our community board will listen to what our community is saying tonight, which is that we want this proposal to pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you. David Clark, followed by Jason Sinaski.
Hello, my name is David Clark. I have a daughter that is the exact same age as Apolline. So when I heard that news, it hit me extremely hard. I am on that corner regularly, and so I'm very much conscious of the fact that it could have been me and my daughter in that situation. I'm very much in support of this proposal, and I do not expect the city to provide me with free storage for my personal property, but I do expect them to work to safeguard the lives of myself and my child. Thank you.
Jason Sinaski. It's getting late, so if folks can just please be prepared when you hear your name called to remove yourself from mute. Jason Sinaski.
Hi, you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, my name is Jason Stranansky, and I have 2 young children who currently attend PS11. I live on Gates Avenue, the street that we're talking about closing, and I cross Vanderbilt every day with my 2 kids. As Ms. Collymore mentioned earlier, every day there are people who come down the wrong way on that road, usually at rush hour. And I struggle with the fact that how do I teach a child to be aware that cars are coming in the wrong direction, that bikes aren't going to stop at an intersection? The 2 intersections that I'm most afraid of are both on Vanderbilt, Atlantic and Vanderbilt and Fulton and Vanderbilt. And both of the reasons I'm afraid of those are for cars that either make illegal left-hand turns, or in the case of Gates, are an illegal right-hand turn, or that speed through a light. The thing that concerns me the most about closing Gates Avenue is the fact that that is the only right-hand turn that's allowed currently on Vanderbilt between those intersections. And the loss of that seems to me like it will increase illegal right-hand turns onto Fulton Street, which as a parent is a very concerning thing. You know, to me, it seems like speed bumps and enforcement is actually a bigger problem than closing the intersection. If we had an additional green space, I'm totally in support of that, but I worry about the loss of the ability to have an additional outlet as a right-hand turn that will alleviate some of the backup on Vanderbilt, because currently every day at rush hour that backs up to Gate or to Green Avenue or beyond. And if you look at Vanderbilt or at Claremont, and you look down at some of the speed bumps, it doesn't seem to have that same problem. So that's kind of where my issue is. Thank you.
You're welcome. William Farrell, Alexander Samaha, I'm sorry if I didn't get that right, followed by Sasha.
Hello. Hi. Sorry, I'm on my phone, so I don't have a camera. I'm Alexander, and I live just off Fulton, and I walk by this place several times a week. You know, Gates Ave is actually older than all of us. And when it was made for pedestrians and not cars. And I fully support Appeline's Garden to return Gates Ave to its original pedestrian-only standpoint. And, you know, we talk so much about community, who is the community. I would just like to note that the vast majority of people, like someone said earlier, are pedestrians, bikers, bus riders who aren't driving or parking in the community. And most of those people can't be here. Maybe they're single moms, they're working, they're cooking dinner, they're on the train as we speak. So I think we need to be like really careful of who even is able to attend these meetings and voice their opposition to Appeline's Garden. So I want to voice my strong support and use my time to sort of address some of the reasons people opposing it have brought up. So first is that it wouldn't solve the death of Appeline. What's very clear is that what caused this crash was someone driving very fast, very easily down a one-way street that is only one way for this one block. That's confusing and can be avoided and eliminated. So closing this would help safety. Another concern was traffic. DOT told us at the beginning that they did a traffic study and they're the experts, that traffic would be really minimally affected by closing this. There's talk about deliveries. As many of you know, most food delivery happens on bikes. Amazon has carts that they walk from trucks. This is only one small block, and like all deliveries will be able to be made on this very one small block with people biking or walking their deliveries. Same with emergency vehicles. And, you know, same with accessing, you know, wheelchairs with people with disabilities. Like this will actually just make it easier for deliveries to be made. And then, you know, something about DOT voicing this.
Finish up.
Yeah, so DOT is a democratically elected body via the mayor and our council and our elections. So, you know, it's just like.
Okay, it's 8:13, so everyone on here, 90 seconds. Sasha?
Oh, sorry, I think I might have been skipped. My name is called William Farrell.
Yes, you were. Okay, after you will be Sasha, followed by Simone de Castri.
Thanks. I think this will be pretty quick. I just wanted to say I live nearby. I'm also a transportation engineer, so I follow these issues and care about them a lot. I wanted to mention the slip lane. It is a dangerous design. Those angled intersections are things that the DOT has been striving to eliminate wherever possible, and I think this is a great case where it's a real obvious like safety win to just eliminate that slip lane. Say nothing of the two-way to one-way, which I think is causing a lot of the wrong way driving. I think a lot of people have kind of dismissed the connection between street design and this particular tragedy, and it is really hard to see the connection between a large system and a single action in that system. But no one intervention is going to solve traffic violence, but traffic violence can't be solved without making these changes one by one. And so when you look at this at a population level, when you look at this across the thousands of people that are using this space every single day, these small changes add up to statistical differences that make everybody safer. And it just reduces the likelihood that a tragedy like the one that occurred will happen. So I'm just voicing my strong support of this design. I think it would be a great improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Sasha?
Hi, I just want to address that the board has the opportunity to ask DOT to increase the number of, to replace the number of parking spaces lost here, which will be 8 spots, not 6 or 7, as is erroneously said many times, elsewhere if this project goes through. And I think the board should call on DOT to increase some parking spots where thousands of new apartments have been built in the last 5 years, thousands. And many spots have been removed by bus lanes, city bike stations, etc. For example, Waverly Street between Atlantic and Fulton was entirely commercial. No street parking is available during the day. It's been turned almost entirely residential. Open up parking there for residents. Make it at least one side of the street entirely residential, and you've replaced more parking spots. Can the board call for that? There's no reason not to do that on Waverly between Fulton and Atlantic. City bike station on Underhill between Pacific and Atlantic can easily be placed on the cobblestones between the trees on the triangle there, Lower Triangle. Instead, it took parking spots on Underhill. That's another easy change. And then people will see that parking spots are not only removed, but are actually made elsewhere. And a project like this will not have that much opposition in this family neighborhood, which has a lot of people, households that need cars.
Simone?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my comment. This is the space we're talking about. Just FYI, I saw numbers going around about how many cars are parked. There are 7 cars parked, but that really doesn't matter. When Belinda, I think on behalf of the DOT presented the proposal, she showed a slide mentioning the toolkit, and the slide is a Fowler Square. Now, Fowler Square is slightly different. It's not like this intersection. We have 28 buildings that are like really right here, close to the place that some people are proposing to transform into a plaza, but I also heard some people talking about a garden. So what I would like you to invite to consider is, instead of creating a plaza, which would attract crowds and noise, and it's really like right at our window, and the people on the first floor actually have their bedrooms on this side, but just to expand the green of the gateway triangle. So not to have a plaza, not to have more people, more noise, more chaos, but to have also something more still, which is more appropriate, I think, for a memorial, which is trees, silence, plants, and also protecting us, having some compassion for us as well as residents, so that we can continue living without having all the mess outside, which has already augmented so much the noise with all the traffic that is increasing. Thank you so much. Appreciate this time.
Thank you. Alan Gerber?
Hello, all. I'm a member of the Environment, Sanitation, and Transportation Committee of Community Board 8 and a member of a community that doesn't end at Atlantic Avenue. And I'd just like to share strong support for this project as a pedestrian, as everyone in this community is. We've all seen the increase in dangerous driving in the last year, and we need more pedestrian space to keep pedestrians safe in a community where the vast majority of people are pedestrians and the majority of people don't own cars, and our street should reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Miller, followed by Andon Keller.
Mr. Miller, you're muted. Okay, pass to bottom.
Okay. Mr. Keller?
Oh, sorry, I'm here.
This is Dan Miller.
Begin.
Hi. Okay. My name is Dan Miller. I am a strong supporter of this proposal to close the street. I live in Community Board 8, but I pass by this intersection very regularly as I bicycle past it on my way to shops and restaurants and visiting friends and going about my business in the neighborhood. One of the greatest things about the city is that you can live here without a car, unlike the vast majority of America. And so we really should double down on that and kind of make this a place that is really hospitable for people who aren't driving. You know, that means like prioritizing other uses of the curb besides car storage. So many people have already brought up deliveries and, you know, street dining. And these are things that are just more important than storing one person's car for hours at a time. And so I think that this proposal is a phenomenal first step towards reducing car usage even more and making this neighborhood even safer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alaya, I think I might have missed someone there.
Mr. Andon Keller.
Mr. Keller.
Hey there. Thank you for the presentation, Emily, and thank you all for hearing comments and participating. Quick points. Street design directly affects driver speed. Driver speed is the key factor in life or death in collisions. I fully support DOT's prioritization of safety and traffic calming. DOT street plan is comprehensive and it addresses a lot of the concerns that were discussed tonight. I think everyone should check it out. It is very in-depth. It outlines priorities. It outlines the overall approach. It outlines priority areas. I feel like it informs a lot of this conversation. Lastly, I'm just going to echo what a lot of people have said. Parking is private storage. We're having a conversation of safety versus private storage. I believe that safety trumps private storage. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Alaya Hill, followed by Nicole Murray.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to say good evening to everyone who was able to attend this critically important meeting regarding the redesigning of the intersection on Gates Avenue and Vanderbilt Avenue. I also want to thank DOT for stepping up to the plate on this issue. And I want to acknowledge the advocacy of Honorable Renee Collymore for the work she's put in, you know, to make this, bring attention to this issue, having spoken to over 2,000 of members of our community about this, who have signed petitions in support of this issue. So when you talk about the community not being informed, that is absolutely not accurate. Also, I just want to say that, you know, I don't want this issue to be reduced to Vision Zero or bikes being against cars or new people in the community against older folks that have lived here for a long time. This is about a dangerous intersection in a poorly designed street that, you know, for many instances before Applene's tragic passing, cars have gone up this street the wrong way, and there's been many instances after the accident, the tragedy with Appleen, that cars have gone up the street the wrong way. So this street absolutely needs to be redesigned. And once again, thank you for Renee Collymore for bringing attention to this critical issue.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Murray, Nicole Murray, followed by Dan Miller. Sorry,
I'm speaking
by Mr. Shaw, sorry, Leo Shaw.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep. Speaking in support, I just want to say, I mean, like people have said everything I could have possibly said, but I'm glad that some of the last set of comments have been mostly in support, because honestly, there has been a few comments here against that, you know, really make me question the future of this neighborhood and the city. I think some people should be ashamed of some of the comments they've made. I'm not going to say names, but if we can't close a slip lane so that kids can play from near to daycare safely, what are we going to do? Like for big, you know, when climate change really hits us, what are we going to do? When cars really start speeding through the city and the mayor hasn't made a program or whatever, what are we going to do? If we can't take this into our own hands, you know, what are we going to do? So I'm really glad that this last set has been in support, and I hope that the people on the community board and at the DOT are listening to them closely and clearly. You know, we have to take this into our hands as best as we can. We're not going to solve all reckless drivers. I can't get into that guy's head, but we can, you know, do traffic calming. It's the right thing to do, and we need to get even stronger and stronger in the age of climate change and air pollution and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo Shaw, followed by Pastor Alex Williams.
Hi there, I'm a community resident. I live on Gates Avenue between Vanderbilt and Clinton Avenue. I wholeheartedly support this proposal. I walk and I ride my bike to work regularly around this corner. I watched the tragedy happen out of my window. I heard, you know, everything that was going on. It was really, really scary. I could picture myself in that situation. I want to say my household has a car. We use it regularly, but I don't think that I'm personally entitled to a free space to store it on the street. And I think that unlike our outgoing council member, I think we need to realize that the large majority of residents in this neighborhood and this community are not car owners. They primarily walk and take public transit like me, like most of the people on this call. And this is also a really critical intersection for people who bike from all over Brooklyn to get to Manhattan. They take Vanderbilt. So if we can make this one small step to make this intersection more safe for all of those people, pedestrians, bikers, everyone else, I think this is a very, very small price to pay for that safety. I've also heard people talk about cracking down on reckless driving. I think the best way to prevent traffic violence is to create safer streets where there are less possibilities for crashes, not through punitive measures and additional policing. And I think for a good example of a similar project, you just have to look down Fulton Street at Putnam and Grand, where the same thing has happened. There's been no negative impact on traffic. It's actually a safe and really positive public space for the community there. So thank you.
Okay, Sam Johnson, followed by Pastor Alex Williams.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just wanted to speak in support of the proposal. I thought I just wanted to address some comments that have been given here. So first of all, I just want to point out that we're talking about 6 parking spaces on this street. So I live 6 blocks away, and I work as an architect and urban planner in the area. So I looked through some DOT studies, and it looks, so approximately in the neighborhood, there are around 14,000 parking spaces between Fort Greene and Clinton Hill. That means that this plaza constitutes only 0.04% of all parking spaces in the neighborhood. So by that logic, it's a completely insignificant amount of parking spaces. I just want to keep that in mind when we talk about preserving parking. And then further, I just want to point out for a lot of the people opposed to it who are saying that, you know, reducing this is going to increase traffic and stuff in the area, numerous studies, including 3 within the last year from the University of Connecticut and the University of California, LA, have shown that increasing traffic and increasing street size for cars increases the amount of cars on the street. So if you are concerned about making sure that ambulances, delivery vehicles, and other emergency vehicles have space on the street to work efficiently, then you need to support this proposal, because only through reducing parking and street design can we reduce the amount of cars on the street and allow the cars that need to be there to be able to operate efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you. Pastor Alex Williams? No? Okay, Kevin?
Hi, my name is Kevin. I live on the block where Apolline was killed, and her death shook the people in my building very much. The benches that were put in the capital plan are already heavily used, and I think that opening this space to pedestrians in an environment that memorializes Apolline and reminds the community of what happened and doesn't let us forget is the best and highest use of this space. And so I sincerely hope the DOT is able to implement this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Darren, followed by William Meehan. Darren?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name's Darren. I am a relatively recent transplant from CB7 into Clinton Hill, and I want to voice my full support for Applene's Garden. I think it's kind of absurd that in 2021, we've seen so much traffic violence and so much climate change, and we understand the inequities of car ownership in the city versus the vast majority of residents either not being able to afford or not needing a personal car storage and personal car of their own. That we're even debating the merits of a few free parking spaces. And by the way, they're not free; they're highly subsidized by people who don't have cars. For street safety and for livable streets in our neighborhood where we have lots of children and parents and the vast majority of our residents and people passing through who do not drive and do not need the free car parking. Limiting that free parking for safety improvements for sustainable livable streets for everyone should be a no-brainer. And I hope we get this done as soon as possible and move on to the next one.
10 seconds.
He's done. Thank you. Next up, William.
Hi, yes, thank you for hearing me today. I live just off of Vanderbilt in CB8, and I frequently walk past this intersection on my way to the G train or to restaurants and shops in CB2. I'm calling in full support of Applene's Plaza at Vanderbilt and Gates. We need to build our streets so that people stop getting killed by reckless drivers. What makes this tragedy even worse is that this particular block was already rebuilt just a few years ago. If DoD had done the right thing and properly closed it the first time around, Apolline Mongiumen would still be with us. I ask the DOT please do the right thing this time and turn the slip lane into a plaza. The Dutch movement to reclaim their streets from cars literally started as Stop de Kindermoord, or stop the death of our children. And I do think that we need to be pulling out all the tools in the toolbox and then some in order to reduce people's speeds while they're driving, and even block off places so that kids can be safe on our streets and on our sidewalks where no vehicle should ever be. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Brady is our last speaker, followed by Councilmember-elect Crystal Hudson, who has some last words.
Hi, my name's Patrick. I live in Community Board 2 on St. James Place between Fulton and Gates. I just want to call in and strongly support this proposal. I think it's probably the bare minimum we can do. I also live in a household that has a car, that we use a car, but I really just want to say that, you know, while I like, you know, it's convenient to have a car, sometimes it really should not be the priority on our roads. And I strongly support this, that I strongly support street space being taken away from cars and repurposed for a beautiful purpose like this. Thanks so much. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Before Councilmember-elect comes on, is Borough Commissioner Bray still on the line? There were a lot of comments regarding access of emergency vehicles if the street pattern is changed. Do you have any comments that you can make on that?
If he's not there, is Emily, can you, there's Emily from DOT, are you still on?
Yeah,
well,
I am.
I actually am here, and
ahead.
but happy for Emily to go forward. Basically, as Emily said in her presentation, if you look at the last slide, we're going to be going over this plan with the FDNY and the NYPD. So they're going to have their say-so in this before we move forward.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilmember-elect Hudson, do you have some comment?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to close out and thank everyone for their comments this evening, both those in support and opposition to the proposal. I hope there will be additional opportunities for public input beyond just the community board. And I just want to say that as a pedestrian, as a biker, as a public transit commuter, and as a driver, I don't think about a lot of this stuff in either or terms, but rather within a both and framework. I think we can both honor Applene's death and keep reckless drivers off our streets. We can both design safer streets and address the lack of parking. We can both create more open space and ensure older adults can safely get to and from their appointments. I know we can do both, and I trust us to do it. And I look forward to working closely with all members of the community in order to do so. So thank you.
Council Member-elect Hudson, thank you so much. Thank everyone for going through this in a difficult way. It is a difficult time. All of us, I think, feel the loss of Appeline, and what we can do to memorialize her is, I think, people are in general agreement to how exactly that's to be done. We'll hopefully see as the matter comes back before the community board and as it's presented more to people in the community board, to the community in general. Thank you, everyone. The next thing on the agenda is discussion of the request to remove parking at DeKalb Avenue and Flatbush Avenue Extension. I don't know who brought that up. I didn't.
Mr. Du. John, are you still on?
All right, let's, if he's not, let's go on to the chairperson's report.
So can we, since we have Commissioner Bray on, we just lose him?
I don't know. Keith, are you
Yes, he signed off.
You signed off.
Okay, then we can move on.
All right. The chairperson's report, let me go through a couple of issues. One of the things that was discussed before was the New York City Streets Master Plan that came out as a result of the council vote. I urge everyone to read that, the New York City Streets Master Plan. It has a lot of issues and a lot of things that will go before the community board and a lot of things that may not go before the community board. In the plan, the community board is only mentioned twice, and I don't think that we're particularly favorably mentioned. Obviously, we believe that it's good to have these things presented to the community board so it can be aired, so we can spend time hearing from the community what their concerns are. And hopefully it's one of the things people will read as the discussions of that master plan come forward, that we will have a chance to input. One of the other things that went on recently was the BQE Reimagine update. The BQE Reimagine update is continuing. That occurred a couple of weeks ago. It was the first presentation. Those of you who don't know, and I can't imagine anyone here who doesn't know, that the BQE from Staten Island through its end in Queens, there is a motion that occurred as a result of the mayor's Brooklyn Queens Expressway expert panel to review the entire thing and to try to reimagine how it's going to be and what's going to happen. There are going to be additional meetings. They are looking at they're looking at the alternatives to the BQE, to its rebuilding. The rebuilding is being scoped out now. I've asked DOT to come to the community board 2 and 6, to discuss the amelioration of the changes that have happened so far. They've promised us they will do that at some point, but at this point, I'm not exactly sure when those will take place. I've asked for it. Hopefully the BQE, who's been relatively cooperative, will come back with a discussion that sometime relatively soon. The other thing is, at the last committee meeting, there was the discussion of the daylighting at the exit at St. James Towers update. And I asked that the board staff find out exactly what happened. And what I'm told is that DOT has approved the the daylighting, which will be the removing of a couple of spaces and putting up no standing signs. The problem was that the COVID intervened and the signs have not been put up. Now, I'm told that the day after we had our meeting last month, that one of the signs in fact did go up. So I'm not sure about the other sign. We will check and find out what's going on. But I believe that that is what the people at St. James Towers asked for, and I believe that's already been approved.
Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Dew,
Yes,
we tried to call on you before. What happened to you?
I didn't get any call, but I've been here the whole time. In any event,
I think you were called at least twice.
there are 3 towers. There is St. James, there is 309 Lafayette, and there's 333 Lafayette. All of those buildings have the large parking lots. We need to check all of those buildings to see if this issue exists, and it should happen, if it does, at all 3 buildings.
I will have the staff check on it. All right. It may be that we will find out what the staff, excuse me.
The other thing is putting up a sign does not necessarily solve the problem, because then that space remains open. That space has to be filled with something that prevents cars from parking there. Otherwise, cars will park there for whatever reason. The daylighting is gone.
Well, I suggest they call 311 and make complaints and see what happens. Now, do you want to go back and discuss the Dekalb Avenue and Flatbush Avenue extension, removing of parking?
I didn't ask for removal of parking. I asked for a study, because it's a number of parking spots there that I think automatically will be part of solving the problem.
Well, I make a suggestion to you. The way studies are conducted is our staff, even when our staff does it, all they do is call into 311. If you want a study done, please call 311 or ask Commissioner or send me an email and I will forward it to Commissioner Bray.
The reason I'm asking for a study is because there is so much B38 traffic on DeKalb Avenue.
Send me an email outlining what needs to be done and I will forward it to Commissioner Bray.
I thought I had done that already, but I'll do it again.
Thank you.
Can I jump in there?
Yes, please.
About 3 years ago, I took John Dew's request, turned it into one of those online requests for studies, put it in. So I may have an email in my system with the number, the ticket number of that request, that Dekalb Avenue around Brooklyn Hospital be studied, and I can try to pull that up. We never got a response as far as I know.
And if you can, please forward it to me and I will check and see where. Commissioner, I'll send it to Commissioner Bray and ask for a response. Or ask one of the office staff to do the same thing. But more than likely, I'll do it. Okay, is there any other committee business?
Yes. Sid. Tonight, again, we heard from the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership nothing about ADA compliance with the elevator. None of the stations in Community District 2 are part of the current 5-year MTA plan. We are doing all of this work, and our modes of transportation are not ADA compliant. And there are no plans to make them ADA compliant. And MTA comes forward with a whole host of plans that mean you're supposed to use public transportation if you can't ride a bike and you don't have a bike, or you don't have space for a bike, or you don't want to ride a bike. The city has to get MTA to make every station ADA compliant, and every bus stop should have a shelter if possible. If not, they should put the 2 seats for the convenience of folk and countdown clocks at every bus stop.
Okay,
If we are,
John, we've asked the MTA to come in January. I believe the city has allocated money to assist them in doing this. They've also asked for money for, they've also asked for the billions of dollars from the infrastructure bill that was just passed. So we've asked the MTA to come and report to us at the next meeting. I don't know what else you expect me to do or the committee to do.
Sid, I don't expect you to do anything more. The fact of the matter is, we're getting all these other issues, and we, the community, are not even getting what we are federally mandated to have. I don't know why we can close off streets, but we can't get ADA compliance in elevators for 20 years. I'm saying we got to look at this whole system. We are looking at things.
John, I'm telling you that it's put on the agenda for the MTA to present next time.
Yeah, I said I don't expect anything more. I am just repeating for 20 years the same thing.
Okay, thank you. Next person.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify that the MTA has not yet confirmed that there will be a January's meeting.
I said we put them on the agenda. That doesn't mean they've confirmed it yet. I understand.
Just want to clarify that.
I understand. I've also asked them, I asked them for an update on York Street too. Yeah, a couple of days ago, and I haven't gotten a response either. Any other community business? Now we have a chance. If no hearing none.
Yes.
Go ahead, Brian.
I mentioned it earlier tonight, but I believe at the beginning of this month, City DOT released its streets plan, which is believe supposed to be a 5-year plan for a comprehensive plan for the city's streets, and that can be all sorts of things from Vision Zero to bus lanes to bike lanes to freight management. And they released their first, it's not really a draft plan, but they do have, I believe, until February to make changes to it. And they laid out projects that are slated for the next year and projects that are slated for future years. And I just wanted to point out, I linked the PDF in the chat. I just wanted to point out that Skirmahorn Street through downtown Brooklyn was listed as a Vision Zero priority corridor project for next year. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. Yes, Livingston Street and Flatbush Avenue were listed as bus priority corridors, 2022 project locations. And then additionally, sorry, just going through the different pages of the PDF here. As for bike projects, 31, sorry, this is very small text I'm dealing with here. Flushing Avenue is listed as a 2022 project, and I believe that's just finishing up the Greenway work, as well as Ashland Place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Cyril?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to echo Mr. Dew's comments in another way. We have MTA is a state organization, state commission, isn't it? It's not a city. It's a state-run issue. Am I correct?
Well, it's state-run.
Right. So my question is.
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
The city has paid for subway stations. The city has given them significant amount of money for specific projects. So while it's a state agency, the city has impact by providing specific funds to do certain things. And I'm aware that it's a state agency. It is something that traditionally has come to the committee to discuss what they're doing, especially when they want to change routes and stuff. So while I know it's not technically under our control, it is something that I think we still have impact on. Now, go ahead.
That's important. But my other part of my question was, if in fact it does have some state and city input, we have two representatives. We have a state assembly person and a state senator. Can the committee ask them to come and speak to us, or can we send them information asking them to put pressure on the MTA in their area to make sure they fulfill the federal government's edict about doing this issue? Mr. Dew has been talking about it. He's been raising the flag forever. We're probably going to be dead by the time that they do have it, so I could care less now. But the point is, it's been going on forever. All I'm saying is, as a community board, can we ask our representatives and tell them we need you to put pressure on that MTA to come here and speak to those terms? Specifically, what are you doing? Whether it's with the city or with the state or combined, give us some input. That's all I'm saying. I think it's important. I think we should do it, and we should be proactive in that for the community, not for anybody else, but for the overall community. This has been going on forever. Thank you.
And they were in the papers today about them forcing the MTA to do stuff. Two, we will be happy to invite them when the MTA comes, and so they can hear from us about this. Again, they have in the past.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
So we're talking about like elevators and ADA accessibility, correct?
Yes.
And just, I'm sure plenty of people here know that there has certainly been tons of pressure exerted on the MTA, in the 80s to get all the buses ADA accessible, and they signed it's essentially an agreement for 100 key stations to make ADA accessible, and that was done. And really, New York City Transit has lagged behind most of our, well, we don't really have a lot of peer transit agencies in the United States, but other large American city transit agencies in terms of building elevators. And the main reason is the cost of construction is just so high. Nicole Murray mentioned in our budget priorities meeting that, perhaps in some ways when we ask for concessions from developers that are usually in the hundreds of thousands or maybe $1 million, that won't pay for an elevator. We're talking about millions or tens of millions of dollars. And the main barrier here, I'm not saying that that's what an elevator should cost, is that those costs are very high. And so the question isn't really, why aren't people solving this obvious problem, is that construction costs are unreasonably high. There are many stations that require, ADA work, and there's just not a large enough pot of money being distributed to that.
Thank you. So at this point, the community forum, is there any members of the community who wish to speak about whatever they want to speak about?
Yes, I see a hand up for Nicole Murray. And Nicole might be the only hand that's up. Nicole?
Yes, I wanted to do my crash stats as usual, but then also, I'm not sure about this, we should ask land use committee, but I think in landmark districts, any elevators that would be added to the street level would have to go through approval on the landmarks committee. I could be wrong, but I remember.
They have to go through the Landmarks Commission for approval.
Yes, so it's not like, on landmark district where the MTA is just like, we're doing this. It has to go through the whole thing. So, Clinton Hill, or this community board, has a lot of landmark districts. So that is another, barrier to getting elevators added. So, tell your colleagues in land use to to hurry that along if it ever comes across their desk.
No, I don't think I don't think that's ever a problem, frankly. I think
you never know.
ULERP has time limits. They're happy to move on. They move on them quickly. But the city and the MTA have to propose it.
Yep. So that's just a comment there. And I just wanted to do the crash stats for the community board area for November. So in last month, there were 55 total crashes in the district. 60 injuries total, no fatalities, 12 cyclists, 16 pedestrians, 32 motorists. Main contributing factor was unknown, but the second one was driver inattention distraction.
Any other comments? We get a motion to adjourn?
No, we have another member.
Okay.
Andrew Rose, Gregory
Hi.
again?
Hi, I
Yes.
just wanted to say I was really inspired by Councilmember Hudson's comment that this can be a both and not an either or. And I wanted to speak to Mr. Dew's point about elevators. I think a lot of people on this call who are excited about further plastification and pedestrian safety are also desperately want more elevators for MTA in the neighborhood and more ADA access for buses. I hope we can find common ground on that going forward.
I'm sure we will.
I don't see any other raised hands.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I gave it to you already.
Second is, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Happy holidays to everybody.
And
Happy
you
holidays.
and Carol,
Have a
you
good
and
year.
Carol Ann get a big bouquet of flowers. Did a very good job tonight.
Agreed.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.